Can Kirk Cousins put his losing woes on primetime aside by heading into Philadelphia and winning as a hefty underdog against the Eagles? Or will it be Saquon Barkley's show once again now that A.J. Brown is sidelined? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Green Dot Daily, live from the Tommy John studio in New York City. I am your host, Charlie DiSturco, and we've got a loaded football-heavy show today, as you'd expect. Sean Koerner and Nick Giffen will join me just in a bit to talk about their favorite props ahead of the Week 2 finale. Billy Ward and I create a same-game parlay, and Gilles Gallant hopping on for a little four-down territory. Like I said, GDD is football heavy, and rightfully so. Oh, and yes, Action Island is back. Sean, Nick, Gilles, and I are going to head to the Galapagos Islands to create an SGP for Monday Night Football to round out our show later. And I mentioned Sean Koerner, and unless you're living under a rock, the man has been on fire. Unlucky number 13 could not even stop Sean, who has been perfect in this week's Best Bets. You can follow all of his picks in the award-winning Action Network app at @_oddsmaker, where it's all available for free. So why don't you follow Sean Koerner? And I mentioned Sean, and he is going to be joining me right now alongside Nick Giffen. Sean, listen, I didn't want to bring this up. I told the producers, let's not talk about this. Personally, I'm the type of guy, if I got a perfect game going, a heater, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like a pitcher having a perfect game. In the bottom of the eighth, do not look at me, do not talk to me. Are you the same way, or do you not mind this the flowers being thrown your way?
Quirky relief pitcher in my later years in high school playing baseball, so very superstitious. I got my lucky green shirt on today. But I don't mind it. You know, I'm just going to stick with the process here, trust my projections. But yeah, I'm not trying to think about it too much. And again, like, I'm very superstitious. I got my lucky green shirt, so we're just going to keep it rolling tonight.
Yeah, I would not have changed anything from yesterday. I would have worn the same socks, underwear, just about everything to make sure that I was still in my groove right now. But we have to get to Monday Night Football. Before we get your guys' favorite props, I do want to ask Sean, how do you handicap this side, this total? It's kind of an interesting game with A.J. Brown obviously out on the Eagles side of things, and Kirk Cousins, you know, coming back from this Achilles injury.
Yeah, so I have the fair line for this game closer to Eagles -5, but without A.J. Brown, I would make it closer to -4. And looking at our expected scores that, you know, fuel our luck rankings, both these teams were in games that were essentially should have been a coin flip in Week 1. So that, you know, the Falcons are unlucky to be 0-1, and the Eagles are pretty lucky to be 1-0. My only concern is just how Kirk Cousins looked on occasion, looked like he was, you know, unwilling or unable to really put weight on his right plantar foot. Of course, you know, he had Achilles surgery in the offseason to repair that. But I think he bounces back with a better game tonight. But I like to see him bounce back before I make it an official play. But I think certainly, you know, the sharp money is coming in on the Falcons here.
Right, we've seen the line kind of move toward Atlanta, and of course we'll have more on the Falcons as a whole, maybe unveil the curtain a little bit on what's to come on Action Island when we talk about that in just a bit. But, you know, everyone's here to get your guys' props. So, Nick Giffen, you're up first. Where are you headed, my friend?
Yeah, well, I didn't go 13-0 this week, but still 8.7 units positive on the NFL this season. So let's give another winner. I think this is going to scare some people, but I'm going with Kirk Cousins under half an interception. No picks tonight. And here's the reason why. You know, I think this line has just been pushed so far towards him having an interception because everybody saw a couple of those really atrocious plays last week. And definitely he had some of those. But that's why I think this is overreaction city. If you look at the touchdown pass that Kirk Cousins did throw to Kyle Pitts, he looked really good on that play. He evaded some pressure. He rolled to his left, and he threw on the run with his plantar foot, you know, his right Achilles, and threw a strike to Kyle Pitts there. So it might be a little overblown, I think, which is why I think this is, you know, getting this line pushed out towards like -160, -170 to the over, which means +135 to the under is a little too long. This Eagles pass defense is a little bit suspect, right? You know, James Bradbury, Darius Slay is aging. Quinion Mitchell, the rookie, very good, but still a rookie. And Avonte Maddox has struggled in the slot. So I do think there's an opportunity here for Cousins to not throw an interception. I have this closer to plus 120. So it's really just a numbers play here.
Right. I mean, it makes sense, too. Like, Kirk Cousins' first game back from an Achilles injury came against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, which is one of the best units. And we don't know. And, I mean, you mentioned it, the Eagles defense, they kind of looked a little sloppy against Green Bay in Brazil. So definitely a great buy spot on Kirk Cousins, selling the expectation of this interception. Sean, your prop to go 14-0, my friend. Where are you headed?
All right, here we go. Let's try it out. I'm going to go with Dallas Goedert, under 43.5 receiving yards. You can get it at minus 110 right now. But, of course, A.J. Brown has been ruled out, which is going to lead to, a handful of targets getting spread around to other pass catchers. And certainly Goddard's going to get a boost from that, but probably not as much as the market thinks. Which is why I think we're getting some decent value here with under 43.5. I was actually a bit down on Goddard heading into this season because, adding an elite pass-catching running back like Saquon Barkley to the Eagles, could directly eat into his target share. We didn't really see that happen in week 1. Barkley only saw 2 targets, but I'm expecting his target rate to certainly go up going forward. They also, upgraded their number 3 wide receiver slot with Jahan Dotson. They got him right before the season started. So, it probably took him a couple weeks to learn the playbook scheme. He should be closer to 100% within this offense by tonight. And he's going to have to step up, of course, with A.J. Brown out tonight. And I think we'll see guys like Johnny Wilson, Britton Covey, or even like Paris Campbell might get elevated and steal a few targets away as well. And Goddard's average depth of the target was just 1 yard downfield in week 1. And the Falcons did an excellent job of limiting Pat Freiermuth to 4 catches, 27 yards in week 1. He has a pretty similar route tree to Goddard. So both, linebacker Caden Ellis and safety Justin Simmons, they just did an excellent job of not giving him any room to run after the catch, forcing him out of bounds. I think they're going to have a similar game plan here with Goddard. And without A.J. Brown in the lineup, they're not going to be, as worried about him beating them deep, which will just allow more resources to kind of prevent Goddard to racking up yards after the catch. So even if he catches 4 or 5 balls here, he could stay under this. I'm projecting his median closer to 37.5 yards here, and about a 61% chance he stays under 43.5.
Yeah, it makes sense. The check downs from last week, that's kind of where Goddard kind of operates. And listen, as you would guess, I bought in on some Jahan Dotson. I'm an over better. I went on his over. So basically we're going, hand in hand here is hopefully Dotson gets the targets. Hopefully he's the one that's able to eat. And obviously you have Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley as well. So definitely another look and a reminder that, Sean is going for 14-0 on the perfect week 2. But of course, we can't let you guys go without talking about tonight. Nick, you're going to be live at halftime for Bet What Happens Live. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, Bet What Happens Live at the 2-minute warning. Me and my co-host Grant Neefer of Scores and Odds will be analyzing Philly and Atlanta. And, we're up over 25 units since the start of last year, since he became my co-host on the show there. So hopefully we'll have another good show tonight for you all. Join us on Bet What Happens Live, and we'll live bet the game. It's fun, right? We love live betting.
We love live betting. Usually we get a couple of long shot touchdowns to back in the second half, and that's just something, if you want to sit on the edge of your seat and root a little harder, that's definitely a great way. And obviously you mentioned Nick has been very successful thus far with Bet What Happens Live alongside him and Grant. All right, guys, you guys are going to come back in just a second. Go get your airline ticket. Go get your Hawaiian. We're going to the Galapagos, guys, but, give me a sec, all right?
Good.
To celebrate Sean's big weekend and help give everyone a piece of the action, we've got a special offer for new pro subscribers ahead of tonight's attempt at perfection. Head over to actionnetwork.com/pro and use the promo code PERFECT for 15% off annual or monthly subscription. Action Pro subscribers get instant notifications every time Sean makes a bet, and also gets access to all of his player prop projections for every single NFL game every week. Once again, that's 15% off actionnetwork.com/pro with the promo code PERFECT. Let's talk some anytime touchdown picks over at FanDuel. Looking at the odds right now, no A.J. Brown, no problem for the Eagles. Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert still remain firmly inside the top 5. The Eagles still favored by close to a touchdown in this matchup. Of course, Bijan Robinson, the high usage, the flashy running back, coming in at second and first overall for the Atlanta Falcons. Of course, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, could they get some work here? We're going to talk about some of them in just a second. And rounding out the top 10, Darnell Mooney, Tyler Algier for the Atlanta Falcons. Can we see some Tyler Algier? We didn't really see that in week 1, but there's a lot of questions to be had. And so now we bring in Gilles Gallant to talk 4-down territory. And if you're new here on Green Dot Daily, basically what 4-down territory consists of is 4 separate bets. We start out right around, a pick on -120, and each consecutive pick has to get longer and longer in odds. Gilles, I nearly hit 11-1 Julian Hill on 4-down territory last week with BMAT. We came up just short, but I'm feeling good about this one. How are you feeling?
I mean, I like the game, but I think the script, I feel like we're seeing the same kind of game that we're probably going to see that we saw in week 2 last year when the Vikings went to Philadelphia, and Kirk Cousins, even though he is a little bit of a cover machine when he goes to Philadelphia, he tends to have the yips, maybe some turnovers. But if the Achilles is actually going to not be a problem, which it was definitely in week 1, I really like him to throw a lot in this game. So I think that's probably where our 4 downs are going to go.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're going on first down. We're playing it safe here. We're going with a -110 bet. How about Drake London over 57.5 receiving yards? You mentioned, is Kirk Cousins' Achilles an issue? It may be, but also the Pittsburgh Steelers are a dominant defense. So I'm buying the fact that Kirk Cousins will take a step forward. The rust is getting knocked off against an Eagles defense that, at least in the secondary, is banged up, not that spectacular. We saw the Packers were able to move the ball with ease, both on the ground and through the air. Guys like Jaden Reed really put up a damage on them. And Drake London, perfect buy low spot. He had just 2 receptions in week 1. He's upset. The Falcons, after losing against the Pittsburgh Steelers, said, well, maybe we should get the ball to Drake London more. I think he can get this in, 4 or 5 goes. I love Drake London. I think he played, he showed up. He played 100% of the snaps. I think that's going to continue here in week 2. So I'm buying Drake London here at -110. Gilles, you're up. Second down. We got to go higher now, go into the plus money territory.
Yeah, I'm going to jump all the way to plus 250, and I'm going to take an anytime touchdown, and it was actually between Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I ended up going with Kyle Pitts in this one. Not that I have anything against Drake London. It's just I need to see more. The way that he was playing in week 1, it kind of reminded me a lot of what we saw with Desmond Ridder last year. But yeah, Kyle Pitts. He did catch the touchdown in week 1, and I think he's going to have to be a key receiving option for Kirk Cousins. He played 92% of snaps, which is obviously encouraging. That means there's no really other tight end that's going to compete with him. Ran a route on 84% of dropbacks. And this Eagles secondary, I mean, we saw it with the Packers. Jordan Love didn't necessarily have a good completion percentage, but he was throwing the ball all over that secondary. And guys like Jaden Reed had a lot of success on that Eagles secondary coming out of the slot, and that's where Kyle Pitts mainly lines up. And another thing, too, I think a lot of those secondary issues that we saw at the second half of the year for the Eagles spilled over into this season. And last year, they were 28th in defensive DVOA versus tight ends. So, again, it was coming down to between Drake London around plus 230, plus 240, or Kyle Pitts. In this instance, I'm going to go with Pitts, who I think is a bit of a bigger mismatch for that Eagles secondary.
Yeah, and listen, I was between, actually, funny enough, I was between Pitts and I was between London when it came to the receiving yards here. And I get it. I understand the whole Pitts thing, but I need to see Pitts get more than 3 or 4 receptions right now, which obviously you just need 1 to get in the end zone, and he is a big body threat and a mismatch. Like you mentioned, he's not a prototypical tight end either. He's fast, he's quick, he's going to be able to do some damage in the slot. So I definitely like Kyle Pitts to do some damage. I think overall, this game is shaping up as a potential over game, a lot of yards on both ends of the ball. But my third down, you gave it plus 250, so I got to go a little bit higher there. I didn't get above 3-1, but I do like buying and taking a stab at Jahan Dotson here. So I'm going to go with a long shot, plus 285 to get 50-plus receiving yards. And listen, this comes down to the fact that the receiving room in Philadelphia needs someone to step up. DeVonta Smith is going to get doubled. He is the center of attention. Will the Eagles just run the ball and run with Saquon Barkley? That's obviously a concern, but I think Jahan Dotson is a great buy spot here. He and Nick Sirianni have been so mindful and hyping up Dotson and as far as his potential goes. So I think the next man up comes right here. Someone needs to step up without him. Everyone's going to be looking at DeVonta Smith. So I'm taking a stab here. I like his over 27.5 receiving yards. I think he's going to get, 3-4 receptions. Has the ability to break a deep ball. We saw that in Washington. And, I don't think Atlanta's secondary, as we mentioned, they're a bit of a pass funnel, and that's been thrown around a lot about Atlanta. They have a really staunch run D, so maybe they force the Eagles in passing situations. So I'm going to buy Jahan Dotson here, 50-plus receiving yards. Think this is totally live. And plus, I needed to go a little bit longer than plus 250. So how are you feeling about Jahan Dotson? You think he can really step up here as that real wide receiver too?
I think he has to, because otherwise the Falcons are just going to stack the box and make sure that Saquon Barkley or Jalen can't get out of the pocket. And so right now you're looking at kind of where the receiving yard lines are for both Goddard and DeVonta Smith. Very similar to week one. Now, DeVonta's is obviously a little bit more increased, but Dotson is going to have to be out there for pretty much all the two wide receiver sets, especially if Johnny Wilson isn't going to play. He is a bit of a game time decision, but A.J. Brown is definitely out. So I'm going to go with it as well. I'm going to take Jahan Dotson for an anytime touchdown. It's around plus 360, plus 370. Again, that next man up mentality. He played 42% of snaps and was out there on most of the two wide receiver sets, but now he's going to have to be out there even more with those guys out. He did run a route on 24 of 26 passing snaps, which is encouraging. Did see a red zone target. And like I said, if they want any chance to be able to stop the offense, they have to stop the run. And if they're going to stop that run and load up in the box, that means Jalen's going to have to be a little bit more of a passer. And I just wasn't really feeling the touchdown odds for DeVonta Smith around plus 140. He was plus 170 last week against Green Bay, much tougher matchup. But then also Dallas Goedert's touchdown odds didn't really move at all. It's still around plus 220. So I thought that was a little bit of a warning sign that maybe we're not going to be looking at Goddard for this matchup. So I think Jahan Dotson for an anytime touchdown is the perfect way to wrap this up on fourth down.
Right. There's a lot of question marks on what the Eagles are going to do on offense. So it makes sense by going maybe longer ends of the odds when it comes to maybe an alt line on Dotson, an anytime touchdown. It really feels like, this is the coming out party for Jahan Dotson. If there's ever a time for him who's going to play, close to 100% of the snaps, run a route on every single passing snap, and command a large target share because now A.J. Brown is out, it makes sense here that Dotson has a big playability and should at least step up and get plenty of opportunities. Now, whether he converts or not, that remains to be seen. But, Jill, I expect nothing less from you. 2 touchdown picks here on 4 down territory. We got just a reminder, Dotson anytime touchdown, Dotson 50+. Second down, Jill went with Kyle Pitts anytime touchdown, and I went with a Drake London receiving yards. Hopefully we see a lot of yards and scores here on Monday Night Football. But Jill, you're not leaving just yet. We're going to say goodbye to you just temporarily, but you got to get your shades, get your ticket. We're going to the Galapagos Islands.
I'll be ready. I'll have my Hawaiian shirt on.
Let's keep the good times rolling in the prop department and take a look at how the public is betting Monday Night Football from a most bet point of view over at BetMGM. Kyle Pitts, #1 when it comes to his receptions over, but the 3 guys we got to talk about, Bijan Robinson, 18 carries in a week 1 loss. DeVonta Smith over receiving yards, the public expecting a big day from the now wide receiver 1 of the Eagles with A.J. Brown sidelined. And then, of course, Saquon Barkley, the new Eagle in town, 109 rushing yards, 23 receiving yards in week 1 against the Green Bay Packers. And, of course, the public's expecting something similar to happen with A.J. Brown sidelined as well, rounding out the top 5 most player props as we now welcome in Billy Ward to break down a same game parlay as we do every Monday and Thursday here on GDD. Billy, obviously you have an extensive breakdown of a same game parlay over on actionnetwork.com. We're going to dumb it down a little bit. 3 legs, you give out 2, I'll give out the 3rd. Where are you headed for the first leg?
Yeah, normally I come on here and say I'm really only betting this because it works well with the parlay, don't love it on its own. Not the case. I really like the total here, the over 46. I think it's dropped to 45.5 some places. There's a couple parts to this. One is, as we learned all throughout the league this week, we cannot overreact to week 1. Our priors on how players and teams are going to do are probably stronger than a 1-game sample size. Atlanta only scored 10 points against the Steelers. Steelers defense might actually be elite. They've played a couple of bad teams, but they look really, really good. That's part of it. And then the other part is, again, how it does line up with the parlay. It's going to work out nicely with the pick that you give, and then the other player prop I'm on. Those kind of, I think, correlate nicely here. We assume if the Falcons, or if this game goes to the over, it's because the Falcons are pushing the pace and keeping it close, which is going to set up with what we're talking about.
Yeah, so obviously Billy mentions the over as the first leg and parlays well with everything else that we're giving out here on the show. And my second leg is Drake London over on receiving yards. You heard me talk about it with Gilles. The same sentiment's true here, right? Like, am I afraid that Kirk Cousins' Achilles injury is hurting him ultimately? Yes, a little bit. But you mentioned it, Billy. Overreactions to week one. This is the definition of it. Now we're getting the wide receiver one for the Falcons at under 60 receiving yards. Raheem Morris, after the game, after the loss, said, we need to do a better job at getting Drake London involved. He had just 2 receptions in that loss. This is a perfect opportunity in a negative game script for Drake London to work. A lot more passing situations. I always love to buy the overreaction. I did that with Mark Andrews over the weekend. Gonna do it again here. Drake London, I wouldn't be surprised if you want to take his touchdown odds, maybe ladder his receiving yards. I think there's a lot in store for him. Bijan Robinson obviously will get his touches, but Drake London is the best guy in that Atlanta receiving room and will command an elite target share. So that's my second leg. And then the third one, Billy, you're going kind of against the over mentality, but it also helps juice the odds a bit.
Yeah, that's kind of the logic here with what I'm doing is to get these juicy odds, we need to do something that at least on its face is negatively correlated with the rest of the parlay. So to that end, I'm going Saquon under rushing yards. It's bounced around. I think we're getting 76.5 or something like that right now. If the Falcons are keeping this close, or God forbid leading this at some point because Drake London's having an awesome day, that's going to mean a lower rush rate for the Eagles, which obviously then impacts Saquon Barkley. The other point, and this is another reason where I kind of like the over, is both teams are kind of pass funnels here. They both had really strong run defenses last year, not so good against the pass. If the coaches do what we hope they do and air the ball out a little bit, that should help scoring, but also obviously limit Saquon's abilities. You know, you could look at Saquon in the receiving game. I think with A.J. Brown out, he might be used more as a receiver, which should also limit his carries as well. So all of those things line up pretty nicely together. Love that you mentioned the Drake London touchdown. You could throw that in there as well. That's what I gave out in the article to make it even juicier.
Right. So Billy has 4 legs over on the actionnetwork.com, which you can use and go see and kind of, you know, you pick and choose throughout the entire show. If you like something else that someone else gave out, throw that in this parlay as well. Right now, the 3 legs that we gave out, Saquon rushing under the over and Drake London's over in general, comes to around 5-1. And the other thing I'm going to add about the Saquon Barkley thing, Billy, which I think is so fascinating, and we talked about this kind of off air a bit, is the usage of Saquon and Bijan were so heavy in week 1. Do they maybe unveil it, pull back a little bit? Kenny Gainwell gets a couple of receiving snaps. Tyler Algier was barely used. How do you feel about the running backs in general in this one? And does that factor in at all that, okay, this guy got, 25 touches in week 1. It's kind of hard to maintain that throughout the season.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to maintain throughout the season. The scary part is it's not that hard to maintain through 2 weeks, right? So does that happen in week 2, week 3, week 4? I think at some point it's definitely got to come down for both guys. And a competitive, somewhat high-scoring game, if both offenses are clicking, which we're already betting on, is the perfect time if you're the coaches of either of these teams. Say, hey, we need to put up points fast. This other team's going to come back and score. Instead of handing it off to our running backs, let's look to take some shots to Devonta Smith, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, whoever else. I think that would be the way this one works out and kind of leads to all of our legs coming together nicely.
Right. And this number has jumped absolutely up from week 1 to week 2. I'm pretty sure it's over 10 to 15 rushing yards. So also something, maybe a little bit of an overreaction. But Billy Ward, a 3-leg SGP north of 5-1. Of course, check out his website on theactionnetwork.com for more, because he has one that reaches double digits when it comes to the odds. But Billy, appreciate you hopping on and best of luck tonight.
Thanks for having me.
If you want access to all of Action Pro's projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player pop picks from Sean Koerner 30 minutes before everyone else and other members of the Action team. You'll also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, and real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today and use code GDD20 at sign up. One more time, that's code GDD20 at sign up for $20 off. And now, the moment that you've been waiting for. It's time to go to the islands. We're going to the Galapagos. You like my little quick wardrobe change? I just left my sunscreen. But listen, guys, we're getting ready for Monday Night Football. Eagles and Falcons. And what better way than to hit Action Island and come back here on Green Dot Daily with the aforementioned Sean Koerner, Nick Giffen, and Gilles Gallant. They are joining me now in the Action Island, or I guess behind me. Look at them. Look at their beautiful faces right here. We are going to concoct a same game parlay. Guys, Action Island is back. And so if you're new here and you haven't been on Action Island before, what will happen is Nick, Sean, Gilles, they're going to give out two of their best bets. We're going to vote one in, vote one off. Of course, these are not always official plays, so follow them in the Action Network app for those official plays. But Nick Giffen, you're up first. What are our first two legs that we're voting on?
Yeah, first leg is, and by the way, this is the Eagles. We hit an Action Island parlay week 2 with the Eagles last year, so we got to do it again this year. First pick, Jalen Hurts, 2 touchdowns, 2+ touchdowns, plus 650 or so. This is crazy. He's done this 13 times in 57 career starts, including the playoffs, which is 22.8% of the time. If that was his true long-term rate every game, that would equate to plus 340 as fair value. So honestly, I don't even have stuff about the matchup here. It's just too long. The odds are too long. I'm just playing the numbers game here. And then for pick number 2, I am going to go with the Atlanta Falcons plus 5.5. Charlie, we haven't talked enough yet this year about the luck rankings. The luck rankings have this as a game. Atlanta is more than 90% in terms of the luck gap of the unlucky team, and road unlucky teams with a luck gap of at least 55% are 17-5-2 in week 2. That's 75% against the spread. And that includes yesterday's game between another hurt QB, Joe Burrow, as Cincinnati covered on the road against Kansas City.
So those are our two legs. Jalen Hurts, 2+ touchdowns, which, the tush push may not be in full effect with Jason Kelce not there, but it's still Jalen Hurts and his athleticism close to the goal line. And then the Falcons, plus 5.5. That's what we're voting between. Gilles, Sean, let's get to voting. All right, guys, in 3, 2, 1. Falcons, Falcons, Falcons. A clean sweep on the luck ranking. I mean, listen, guys, how can we really fade the luck rankings? If Nick Giffen says it's a luck rankings play, it has to be a first leg. And Sean, I know you mentioned in particular that it was, you had this closer to 4. Obviously, it makes sense here to add into our first leg of the same game parlay. A clean sweep, guys, so feeling good in the driver's seat that we're all in agreement. Hopefully we can continue that with Gilles Gallant, who is now up.
Yeah, I'm going to go right to what we just talked about a second ago, Charlie. I'm going right back to the touchdown market. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts for a touchdown at plus 260. He did catch a touchdown last week. I think he's going to be that receiving option that Kirk Cousins could really use here at quarterback. He played 92% of snaps last week and ran a route on 84% of dropbacks. And Jaden Reed had a lot of success out of the slot for Green Bay last week. That's where Kyle Pitts mainly lines up. And of course, the Eagles, their secondary, a lot of what we saw last year, I think, is happening again. They ranked 28th in defensive DVOA versus tight ends last year. So I like Kyle Pitts to get into the end zone. The other option, though, is kind of just the next man up, and that's Jahan Dotson at plus 370. I mean, if A.J. Brown is going to be out and Johnny Wilson, he didn't practice on Saturday, probably going to be a game-time decision, but I can't imagine he's going to have a full helping of snaps. So I expect Jahan Dotson to play more than 42% that he played in week 1. You did see a red zone target, so at plus 350, you're getting the default wide receiver 2 in the Eagles offense. I think that's the next best option. So Jahan Dotson at plus 370 or Kyle Pitts at plus 260 are my 2 touchdown bets.
Right. We just talked about that earlier on 4-down territory. And it makes sense, right? Like Pitts is such a matchup nightmare in general because he's so much faster than like a bulkier tight end. And then Jahan Dotson, can he step up in this new role with A.J. Brown out? All right, Nick, Sean, we have a touchdown pick to decide between. Let's get to voting. All right, guys, let's vote and show our votes in 3, 2, 1. I got the armpit, and then you have Kyle Pitts. There we go. Another clean sweep. Guys, look at this. You like this? This is a great drawing right now. I had to get creative, because Kyle Pitts, he is the armpit because he's been absolutely brutal in general the last few years. But it feels like with Kirk Cousins, he loves his tight ends. Maybe everything's going to be flowing here. So I like Kyle Pitts as our second leg. Kind of goes hand in hand, too, with us liking the Falcons to cover. Kyle Pitts, one of those guys that's going to be getting us in the end zone. 2 clean sweeps, and now we welcome in the red-hot Sean Koerner for his 2 picks to add to the same game parlay. Sean, where are you headed?
Yeah, so both of these definitely correlate with what we're cooking up. So I'm fine if you guys pick either one of these. But the first one is Darnell Mooney under 36.5 receiving yards. And, the Falcons surprisingly ran the ball at a very high rate in week 1. They actually had the lowest pass rate over expected. And they should be able to lean on the run game here against the Eagles, who allowed 5 explosive runs of the Packers last week, really got gashed on the ground. So I think they're going to try to stick with the run early on. I do expect the passing offense to bounce back here, but specifically Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Drake London was blanketed by Joey Porter Jr. In week 1, really gave him fits. So I think with the better matchup here, we'll see Drake London break out. And Mooney's is kind of the 3rd or 4th option. So I think he has a really low floor here. I'm projecting him closer to 32.5. So like his under here. And for the second one, I'm going to go with Kenneth Gainwell under 9.5 rushing yards. And look, the Eagles brought in Saquon Barkley to be the clear lead back, and that's what happened in week 1. Gainwell barely spelled him, and it was mainly on passing downs. He took a couple 2-minute offensive plays from Barkley. So I don't really see him getting much work on the ground here. He only saw 1 carry for 2 yards last week. Also, rookie Will Shipley is going to mix in as well. So Gainwell might need 3 or more carries to clear this. I just don't see that happening. So I like Gainwell under 9.5 rushing yards as well, especially with the, potential post game or Falcons, having a positive game script here.
Right. It really feels like for Gainwell, it'd have to be a blowout for him to really get the rushes because Saquon Barkley is the lead back. We saw that in week 1. They really hammered it home with him. And then Darnell Mooney, usually you could fade Darnell. He hasn't been that great of late. And listen, you want to get the ball to Bijan. Kyle Pitts, we talked, me and Gilles earlier, about Drake London. He's a little upset, only 2 catches, so maybe you got to feed him the ball more. So Nick, Gilles, we have 2 options. Darnell Mooney under receiving yards, Kenneth Gainwell under rushing yards. Let's get to voting. All right, guys, let's get to voting in 3, 2, 1. Mooney. Oh, see, Nick, you drew a better moon than I did, bro. If I flip a card over, this is my first moon, and that was just like, I don't know what I was doing there. It looks like a 10-year-old tried to draw it. But, all right, we are all in agreement. Darnell Mooney, a clean sweep on the under. So we have Darnell Mooney under, Pitts touchdown, Falcons spread. I'm going to kick it to Nick. How do you feel about this same game parlay we got going on?
I love it. They're all correlated, right? We got Falcons covering, which Kyle Pitts, grabbing the touchdown helps that. And if he grabs an early touchdown, that should help Atlanta maybe have more of a rush-heavy script, which means we don't have to throw it to Mooney as much. So I like the correlation here.
Listen, guys, I know that I wasn't here leading the ship, steering it all over the Galapagos in week 2 last year when you guys hit the same game parlay with the Eagles, and you did it again and, against the Buccaneers in the playoffs. This is our lucky team here, but I think this is it. I think, I'm just here to help with the voting. You guys are the actual ones creating it. So Nick Giffen, Gilles Gallant, Sean Koerner, appreciate you guys getting on. You can take your red eye back home now. And just a reminder, if you want to know what the same game parlay came out to be, it's a plus 850 parlay between Falcons plus 5.5, Kyle Pitts anytime touchdown, Darnell Mooney under receiving yards plus 900 rather. Be able to shop around, maybe use a booster once or twice. But yeah, there you have it. 3 legs, and maybe get crazy. Pick and choose what you heard from them. That's what the beauty is of Action Island. And now it's time. Of course, you heard from Sean Koerner, Nick Giffen, Gilles Gallant, Billy Ward. But how about me and the wheel? Of course, my best bet and his best bet, we're going to go head-to-head against each other. Right now, if you look at the standings on how we've done year to date, let's just say that I've had the wheel's number. The wheels are falling off, quite frankly. 0-2 going back to the tight end well on Thursday night football. The wheel went with Dalton Kincaid's over, and of course, my James Cook rushing and receiving went to the over. He had an absolute day. Some are saying that I have the Midas touch when it comes to me and the wheel going head to head. It's just not fair at this point. So my best bet is going to be for this Monday Night Football between the Falcons and the Eagles, Drake London over receiving yards. You heard me say it about 20 times on this show already. I like London to have a bounce back day. Perfect buy low spot on a guy who only had 2 receptions in week 1. We're expecting a loss from Atlanta or maybe a close game, but London is going to be a key reason behind the Falcons' offensive success. So give me Drake London to bounce back after a bad week 1. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Can the wheel go and finally win? Or will it go 0-3? It's a big push out of me. Kirk Cousins over 224.5 passing yards. So, you think about it, right? Like, the wheel's been going head to head with me. Now we're kind of rooting for each other a little bit, but then I just got to root for after Drake London gets his, we kind of taper off. We give the ball to Bijan. Maybe the Falcons end up winning, and we don't need Captain Kirk late. We have obviously seen him struggle with the Achilles, so Wheel, I don't know really what you're thinking, you stupid thing. Like, I think Drake London gets his, but then after that, I don't really know. But there you have it. The Wheel's best bet, Kirk Cousins is over on passing yards. My best bet, Drake London. We're kind of holding hands into the sunlight here, but hoping that Kirk Cousins ultimately fails to hit over this number. And just a reminder that any pick that we give out here on the show, like the ones you hear from me, Sean Koerner, everyone else, you can follow us in the award-winning Action Network app. Every pick from the show is at the handle @green.daily. We keep track so you don't have to. That's going to be all for me on this Monday. Hope you guys enjoy the game tonight. We have plenty of picks for you to kind of pick from. Hopefully the Action Island same game parlay hits as well. I'll be back here tomorrow, Tuesday at 3 Eastern on the Action YouTube channel and the Action Hat. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.